Only you guys could see what my husband does before these. That's why we're always laughing when we start, because
It takes her so long to get ready. I'm so impatient.
Anyway, hello everyone in Facebook land. Laura Schwint here, and bringing along my husband Mitchell.
Peace, poop, plants.
Peace, poop, plants. We are on tonight to talk about the results from our Viome. Is that how you say it?
Biome?
Biome test. And so beginning-ish of January, we both took some samples of our poop and put them in a little vial and sent it off into the mail and crossed our fingers that it went to the right people.
There may still be evidence that you were doing some kind of science project back there in the bathroom.
Yours was actually messier, so.
No, there's tape. Well, there's still tape all over the toilet.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. I'm not going to go into the details, but I made sure that mine was adhered very well so I didn't lose any poop. You had a little bit more of a problem, so you had a little more cleanup. If you would have adhered it better, it might not have been such a problem. Anyway, we digress.
More than you want to know.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us. This is what happens in our house on a typical Saturday night. But anyway, we got the results back, and do you want to just go into what yours were?
Biome. I think the take-home point is that, you know, everybody talks about the diet and what diet is best, and it's almost like I will liken it to a religiously charged issue when you start talking about
Yeah.
paleo, keto, plant-based. People get almost violent, I think, and it's more of like an argument where people want to prove you wrong and themselves right, but that's really impossible in essence without knowing what's underneath the hood. We talked about this before about, you know, you can look at a car and say, oh, the car looks nice, it probably runs fine, but until you actually turn the key, you don't know, or you look under the hood, you don't know if it's full of gas or the oil's gone or whatever. But to digress, basically, you know, your biome, the bugs in your gut really will determine a lot about what your body can handle and can process. And I kind of knew some foods that were triggers for myself and you know, choose to eat them sometimes anyways, but there are some foods that I didn't know that I really like, and now knowing the data and the science behind it has really shifted my dietary approach. And so, I mean, some common things are peanuts, which I love, and there's a virus that can live on peanuts, which is very common. And depending on your gut biome, you may or may not be able to handle that or process that. And so if you can't handle it, it creates inflammation in your gut, which causes the little tight junctions that keep the cells together. Nice graphic, yep. But what happens is the cells separate, they're swollen, they're inflamed, and food products actually leak into the bloodstream, so to speak. And so you wouldn't inject an IV full of peanut into your arm. And so it's sort of a crude way to think about, you know, when you inflame your gut, all these things that you eat are getting into your bloodstream, and your body's not used to it. It's foreign. It creates inflammation. You feel bad. You're tired. You have mental fatigue. Your skin breaks out. You have gut pains or stool problems. And a lot of that comes down to, you know, your body not being able to handle what you're putting into it. And
a lot of that has to deal with, when you say your biome in your gut, it's what bacteria you have in your gut, right?
Well, it's the biome, yeah, the biome or the microbiome or the microbiota.
And that's different for everyone.
It is. I mean, the results were surprising. We live together. We share a lot of the same foods, and what's inside you is a lot different than inside me. Probably partly because of travel, or you know, you go out to a restaurant, you eat at a friend's house. You spend a lot more time with a dog on your lap, licking your face, than I do. So, I mean, the variety of things that can impact your biome. I mean, a single dose of antibiotics sounds silly, but a single dose of like azithromycin can affect your gut biome for years. And so that little, quote, sinus infection you had, which was probably more likely just potentially a cold or a virus that didn't need anything, that little innocent 5-day course of antibiotics can really mess you up for the whole year.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I took this test before my episode with appendicitis, where I was loaded with antibiotics, tons of antibiotics. So my biome right now is probably completely different than it was when I took this test. Is that correct?
Well, undoubtedly. I mean, the quantity of antibiotics and the broad spectrum nature of the antibiotics that you got before surgery, which is a common practice, and I'm not lambasting that or anything. There's some science behind it, depending on what the situation is. can significantly affect the health of your gut. And so there's some strategies that you can, use to mitigate that. I mean, brought you home from the hospital and got some broad spectrum probiotics and started pushing some of the prebiotics, which are what the bugs like to eat, with the idea of restoring your gut health as quick as possible.
Yeah. So peanuts were surprising to you. What else was on your test that was surprising to you?
Almonds. I mean, I eat a lot of almonds, and part of it was there's some mold issues, and there's also something called phytic acid, which if you don't have the right bugs in your gut, you can't handle it. And what happens is it actually blocks the absorption of a lot of micronutrients. And so I eat a lot of almonds and pistachios, and I know that sometimes when I do that, I don't feel so well, and I never really knew why. I just thought maybe I'm not processing the plant, the fiber product of it or something else. But now I know actually it's creating inflammation in my gut and creating a excess of a specific type of acid that blocks absorption of a lot of the other supplements that I take or the other nutrients that I would get from food otherwise had I not eaten these things. So, I mean, it's really changed, some of the snacking things and some of the ways that I feed my gut biome. Sauerkraut creates a problem because of histamine, which if you think about allergic reactions, bee stings, things like that, you get hives and you swell and you itch and you don't feel good. And the same thing can happen inside the gut. The gut can actually swell quite a bit, which is a huge part of the problem with inflammatory bowel problems. So if you know somebody who's got Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, just ask them what they feel like, and you'll probably have a pretty good idea of what you're doing inside your own gut if you're eating these things that you can't handle.
Right. So I had several foods that caused over fermentation in my gut, including cashews, pistachios, and cauliflower. Those would over ferment. And when those over ferment,
it's not always the dog.
A lot of gas is produced. And it's interesting because the graphic that I saw, the gas can obviously come out, and that's what everyone else gets to participate in, but it can also kind of come up and cause a lot of discomfort. So those are foods that if I eat can cause a lot of discomfort in me, and so something maybe to avoid or eat in smaller quantities.
Well, if you've got excessive gas and you're not able to express the gas, if you've got a hiatal hernia or some other issue, or you're prone to acid reflux, all that excessive pressure, can exacerbate those problems, and that's not comfortable for anybody. Right.
One of mine that was bad, which I'm really sad about, it said that coffee was bad for me due to the microbiome because of the catechins in the coffee that can cause unfavorable integrity. So the integrity of the gut lining and function, motility of the gut.
Coffee is a pretty charged topic. I mean, when you say coffee in general, that is a broad spectrum of things, depending on how it was produced, how the beans were roasted, how they were stored. I mean, we know that coffee has a fair amount of mold in it, and there's actually a bulletproof type of coffee that is mold-free. It's expensive, and I've had it before, and it's good. But the other side of the coin is the genetic makeup of your coffee metabolism. So I'm a slow metabolizer, and there's data on caffeine metabolism. Interesting study, one of our favorite places in the world, Costa Rica. They did a study with several thousand men and found this specific genetic defect. And so if a person is a slow metabolizer and they have 2 or more cups of coffee a day, it actually increases the risk of heart attack. And so I try to keep that in mind as I'm having my afternoon third coffee, but it doesn't always work. But it's good. I mean, just, knowledge is power, and you have to make choices and decisions. And I'm not going to drink 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee every day like I used to, knowing that it increases my risk of having a heart attack.
Right. Makes me think more about some of the mushroom coffees and alternatives to coffee that maybe might be metabolized better and be better for my gut.
Green tea or matcha.
Yeah, it's just not the same as coffee.
The EGCG, which is a tumor suppressor. Plenty of studies in Japan about stomach cancer. Is it EGCG or ECGC? I don't know, whatever. E's and G's and C's, it's fine.
So do you remember what was good for you? Like things that were superfoods? Because it was a really detailed report, and it said what foods you should absolutely avoid, right, things that you should minimize.
Your superfoods.
Yeah, and then superfoods that are really good for your biome.
Yeah, eggplant, cashew milk is good for me. Avocados. I mean, the list is pretty extensive about, the superfoods.
Right.
Hazelnuts, Brazil nuts. avoiding peanuts and almonds. I think I said that already. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of my superfoods were good because of the polyphenols. And I guess those help balance the biome. And so in other words, they feed the good bacteria, and the bad bacteria, they don't like these things. And then they help, by doing that, they help decrease inflammation. So a lot of my good foods were high in polyphenols. Am I saying that right?
Polyphenols, yeah, they're antioxidant. I can't, there's one of the words kind of escaping right now, but I mean, it's basically the benefit of eating a plant-based diet is it's high in polyphenols. The bugs like it. It's anti-inflammatory and quite beneficial.
Yeah, so some of the things were cilantro, which I love, olives, oregano, turmeric, and flax oil.
Yeah, flax oil is also high in omega-3, which most, unfortunately, the standard American diet is high in omega-6, which is inflammatory. And omega-3 is beneficial. I mean, it's a balance. You can't just have all of one and none of the other, but the ratio in our standard diet, if you eat out or you go to fast food restaurants, is entirely skewed towards omega-6, which is toxic and damaging to blood vessels and brain and everything else.
Which we know when we go out to eat, I feel terrible. And I'm sure it's because of that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the half-life of a French fry. It's about 66 days, So I went out with a friend for lunch, and we both had salads. Very exciting, boring. But anyways, I wanted that French fry so bad. I could smell it, I could see it, I could even taste it. And I thought, that thing's going to be in my body for 66 days. That's the half-life of the crappy oil that they cook those things in. And so it's just a part and parcel of the standard American diet. So every time you go out and have French fries with your dinner, your supper, your meal, whatever, you're just putting that inflammatory substance in your body, and it's just hanging around.
66 days.
Well, yeah, if you have it today and have it at the end of the month, now you've have it for almost 100 days in your body. A third of the year, your body's trying to get rid of that toxic oil that you just ate. So there are healthy ways to have sort of a modified French fry. Slice the potato, bake it till it's not quite done, and then saute it in olive oil or some other oil with a high smoke point, so that you don't get
like grapeseed oil is a high smoke point, isn't it?
I think grapeseed oil and olive oil, and there's avocado oil, plus minus. I mean, it depends on how it's made.
Yeah. So, and then one last thing for seeds for me, the peanuts and the almonds again were bad, but they recommended pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds because they actually help tighten that gut lining junction. There was properties in them that helped to tighten that junction, which.
Yeah, there's different oils and the different types of nuts, and I mean the names are complicated and the chemical structures are painful, but there's some pretty good science.
Organic chemistry. Here we go.
Some pretty good science behind it. I mean, if you think about what our ancestors ate hundreds of years ago, they were pressing olives. They weren't going out and taking grain products that are sprayed with glyphosate and compressing them into oil and then frying them. That shit's toxic. There's no way about it.
Oh, we just got PG-13 here. Sorry.
There's no way around it. I mean, if you look in we do have one of those toxic oils in there. I'm not sure what's used for. It's probably some
baking
holdover for a recipe, but I mean, the vast majority of the oils in there are, high in omega-3, and they're pressed oils, and they're relatively non-inflammatory and safe for cooking. So
what was interesting to me was that they recommended that you do this every so often because things can change. So this may be something that is good for me right now, and obviously I had high dose antibiotics, so now I'm probably completely different. So it's something that is kind of evolves with time, and it's not a stagnant or a constant.
Yeah, I think it's probably a cultural thing where you go to your doctor once a year and you get some lab tests and you're good for a year and you think everything is fine and stable for a year, but that's not really the way things work. The body's dynamic, it changes, environmental things change, you get sick, you take an antibiotic, you travel, you have a bunch of crappy food, and things do change. And so, monitoring or checking periodically is a rational approach. If you're looking to optimize, if you just want to be average, you want to be, look around your community. Do you want to be the average health of everybody you see in your community? I mean, maybe you live somewhere cool like Colorado when people are healthy, or you live in the Midwest where people tend to be a little more plump and rolly, and if that's what you want, that's fine. But I think most people probably want a little bit more out of their body, particularly as we age. The concept of, aging longer but also maintaining function. I mean, nobody wants to be 110 and be totally disabled and crippled. People want to, you know, if you're going to live longer, you want to be functional and robust. And so doing some periodic maintenance, just like you take your car for an oil change. I don't know shit about cars. I don't know why I keep on saying car stuff, but anyways, you need to look and see what's going on. You can't just solely base it on how you feel. I mean, there's a lot of data and a lot of metrics, and it's going to be more available and easily accessible, and the cost is rapidly coming down all the time for all these things. Mm-hmm. And with the explosion of technology, it's going to be easier than ever for the person who is really in tuned and wanting more to get the data, get the metrics, and figure out what works best for them. And not just sitting around, you know, the table or the coffee house arguing about what diet's best. Having the data and knowing inside your body what is actually the best for you, it makes a huge amount of difference.
Yeah, I see the future of medicine is really going to be more individualistic.
Personalized.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the genetic testing and the microbiome testing and all the other things that are you know, coming down the pike. I mean, you can get your DNA tested from 23andMe for, I think it's $99 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And you can run all that data through various programs that are free and available online, and we can share that with people if they're interested. For example, what type of exercise is best for you? Do you have a problem with cholesterol metabolism or coffee metabolism, or do you have some sleep gene that is really messing up your sleep, and there's some specific targeted nutritional things that you can do to improve your sleep? I mean, all that stuff for $99, that's less than the cost of any test your doctor is going to order at your annual exam, which is, well, we won't go there.
We won't go there. That is a good time to close, but I hope this was helpful. And if you have questions about Viome or want more information, don't hesitate to private message me, and I'll probably ask him. But thanks for joining. We had a few people on. We had Mary, Michelle, Allison, Minnie, Karen, and Kelson. Thanks so much for joining. I hope this was helpful. Have a great night, and go feed your biome something good.
Feast, poop, and plants.
Feast, poop, and plants. Cheers.